it's Nicola Morgan, the Teenage Brain Woman, and today I'm back with 16-year-old Imogen talking about how to prepare for exams. Now, obviously, the best way to prepare for exams is to get yourself a copy of Exam Attack, but this interview is a very good and very quick way to start. Do check out my website because you'll find so much more information there as well, not just about exams, but about all the other topics that I talk about to do with well-being and how to make your brain work as well as it possibly can. Imogen and I recorded this during lockdown in August 2020, but because of lockdown and social distancing, we obviously weren't actually recording it together. We recorded Imogen's questions and then I answered them separately. If any teachers are listening to this, and I hope you are, then do check out my teaching materials on my website. You'll find videos, lesson plans and all sorts of activities, and you can book a live online Q&A too, so that your students can ask whatever questions they want to ask. Anyway, over to you, Imogen. What's your first question?
Why did you want to write Exam Attack?
Well, I wanted to write it because I know that exams are such a big source of stress for so many of you. Some years ago, I did a big online survey on all of the different things that might be sources of stress for young people in secondary school. And easily, amongst all the age ranges in secondary school, easily the biggest source of stress was exams and schoolwork. Now, I can't remove the anxiety and the stress, but I can give you the tools to approach your exams with confidence so that you have the best chance possible of doing your best work on the day. I did write an ebook, a short ebook called Exam Attack a few years ago. It was the best advice that I could think of, but written in a really, really short form. And so I wanted to put a lot more detail in about what's going on in our brains and bodies and what kind of things make our brains and bodies work as well as possible. So Exam Attack has all of the detail, even though it's quite a thin book. It's not a big, chunky, daunting book. It's quite a slim book, and it's not going to look too worrying when you see that. And you know that in this little book are all of the things you need to know to make your brain and body work as well as it possibly can on the day. So I talk about healthy lifestyle, I talk about how to manage your screens while trying to work, and also how to, when you get to the actual day of an exam, how to go into that exam and do exactly the right thing with your brain as soon as you open the paper, how to read the questions properly, and how to have practiced the actual exams, not just the stuff you've got to learn, but how to do the exams, how to practice that in advance, and lots of information as well about the modern knowledge that we have about how to learn well. There are lots of ways, when I was at school, lots of ways I tried to revise, and we now realise that some of those ways are not the best ways to help our brains learn. So there is detail about all of those things in Exam Attack. One of the things that I say is that when we approach exams, in the months leading up to your exams, it's quite like if you were a sports person and you were training for a big competition. If you were doing that, if you think about it, your coach wouldn't just be making you practice the skills of your particular sport. Your coach would also be looking at a whole load of other aspects about your lifestyle. So the food and water that you are taking in, the sleep that you have, how to relax, how to deal with the emotional stress of that competition day, all sorts of things about positive thinking and visualizing success, how to manage the whatever differences you have, whatever things you struggle with, for example, how to manage those. So your coach would be dealing with all of those things to do with your mind and your body as you approach that competition time. What I say is that approaching exams is just like that. So Exam Attack is about your coach, me, showing you all of the ways, all of the actually quite simple ways that you can get your brain and body into peak condition so that when exams come, you're just like that athlete, that sports person in absolute perfect condition as they get to competition day.
Are all students stressed about exams, or are some not? And if some are not, how can the rest of us be as relaxed as them?
Almost everyone does get stressed about exams. It's such a common experience. And actually, having some stress about your exams is not a bad thing. We need some stress. Stress is what makes us, instead of just lying on a sofa and being too relaxed when we wouldn't do our best work, stress is what helps us be ready, helps our brain and body be alert and awake, with adrenaline going around it, making our brain and body work well. So that's what stress does. So we need some of it. I don't want to get rid of all of your stress. The key is to control it so that we can have enough but not too much, and also to have it at the right times. So we need to be a little bit stressed as we go into an exam, because as I say, that's going to make us perform at our best. But we need to be able to stop our stress at other times, for example, the night before when we're trying to go to sleep, because if you're feeling stressed, it's going to be really hard to fall asleep. So the key to this is not to get rid of stress completely, but to be in control of it, so that we can have that alertness, that sense of nervousness and some anxiety at the right times to make us perform well, but not have it too much, because if we have it too much, it wears us down and then it makes us perform less well. So there are two ways to manage stress, and we need to do both of them. First, we need to have an instant strategy for those moments when we're starting to feel panicky, when we're starting to feel too anxious, and we need to just take our stress levels down, slow our breathing rate, slow our heart rate. So we need an instant breathing exercise. And I do describe that in Exam Attack and also on my website. And then the second way is to make sure that we take regular breaks. Not necessarily just when we're feeling stressed, but regularly anyway. Don't wait until you feel very, very stressed before you take a break. Because one of the perhaps surprising but really important things about taking breaks is that the breaks make your brain be able to learn what you've just been trying to take in. So if you just try to cram more and more and more information in, and don't take a break, your brain doesn't get the chance to process the information you just took in. So take regular breaks. Don't wait until you're suffering from stress. Don't wait till you feel really bad. Take a break every now and then throughout the day and go and do something different. The best thing to do in those situations, if you can, is to go outside and get some fresh air, get a little bit of physical activity. And during that time, not only will you relax a bit, but also your brain will be able to process what you've just been learning. So learn an instant breathing strategy, which you'll find in Exam Attack and also on my website. And also make sure that you take enough breaks and don't wait until you absolutely need them.
Do you think that schools have a responsibility to reduce the pressure that students feel about exams?
Yes, I think they do, but it's difficult for schools always to get this right, because some students need to be pushed a bit more or a bit earlier, and other students are already pushing themselves too hard and need to be allowed to relax. And so if you think about it, if you're a school or you're a teacher and you've got a whole year group in front of you, some of those students are going to be one of those types of person, and other students are going to be different. So it's quite hard for the school to get it right for everyone. But schools do have a duty to try to do that, and individual teachers will be trying to do that. And I go around lots of schools. Well, obviously now in lockdown, I don't physically go around lots of schools, but over the last years, I have gone into many, many, many schools. And I'm also still in communication and doing online events with other schools. And I see quite different behaviours from schools. Most schools I see getting it right, with really concerned teachers who are doing their very, very best to find the right level of pressure for each type of student, each individual student. But I do see some other schools that seem to be piling on way too much pressure. The posters in the foyer saying 29 days to exams or 29 days to GCSEs or whatever. I don't think that is generally necessary for most students, and it can be making some students too anxious. I remember some years ago at the Edinburgh Book Festival, I did an event for young people on stress in general, not just about exams. And in the Q&A session at the end, one young person who I think was probably only about 12 or 13, so I don't think she wasn't about to do important public exams or anything, but her question was, what do I do about the fact that every time someone says the word exam, my stomach clenches up? And she actually put her hands to her stomach when she said that. And that's really sad that she has already, at her age, got to the point where every time someone mentions the word exam, that her stomach clenches up. But there may be all sorts of reasons why that is the situation for her, and it will be a very common situation for students as they do approach exams, so particularly in your GCSE year and your A-level years and whatever public exams you're doing, whatever country you're in around the world. So if that's how you are, if you're one of those people who is feeling too anxious about exams and those anxieties are getting in the way of your life and making you feel unwell, so that you're not doing, then your brain is not going to be doing its best work. If you're in that kind of situation and that kind of person, then you will, even more than others, need the advice that people like me give in places like Exam Attack, really to work on making sure that you are not working too hard all the time and that you do give yourself breaks, and also to talk to your teachers and your parents and whatever adults are there to support you. Talk to them about how you can keep your stress levels at a manageable level. That's what all my work is about. So schools have a duty, even though it's difficult, to work out and to notice what the stress levels are of the different students in front of them, and to try to put the appropriate amount of pressure and not too much, and just to keep an eye on when it is getting too much.
What is the best way that parents can help?
Well, a little bit similarly to schools needing to identify with individual students what they need, how much pressure they need. So I think what parents need to do is to be sensitive to the actual needs of their own teenager. Some need to be pushed and others need to be helped to relax. Some will be good at asking for help and others won't. But the best way to know what your teenager needs is to ask. To ask at the right moment, so not to ask at the time when the teenager isn't receptive, isn't ready to hear because maybe they're too busy, they're too caught up with something else. So to ask at the right time and not to assume, so not to think that just because you're an adult you know best. You might know best, but don't do that assuming that you know best, because you don't necessarily know best. Many young people are mature enough to know what they need themselves, and no one likes to have advice thrown at them when they're not asking for it. So parents who do too much advising when it's not asked for will find that their advice is more likely to be ignored. So be sensitive to what your teenager needs and ask them and listen to the answer. But also I think the second thing that parents can do is to make sure that they are fully, properly informed about what exactly these exams involve. Because if we as parents just think back to the exams that we took, then we're not going to have the full picture, because things have changed a lot in so many ways. So parents need to make sure they know properly what these exams involve, and they can get that information best from the schools. So most schools will be really good at informing parents what is required and also how parents can best help. But if the school hasn't, or if the parent has missed some information and feels that they're not fully informed about exactly what is involved in each different exam, then they can ask, and that's what parents need to do, and schools will be all too happy to share that information with them.
What are the 3 most important messages from Exam Attack?
Oh, I always find it so hard to pick my 3 top tips, but I think they would be, firstly, to ask for help early and clearly. There are lots of tips on exactly how to do that in Exam Attack, but to make sure that you don't leave it too late to ask for help. And that asking for help could be something really small, just one thing that you don't understand or that you're not sure that you've understood properly. It could be something to do with asking whether the teacher thinks that the notes are sufficient, the notes that you've done or the topics that you've been covering. Or it could be something much bigger. It could be a whole topic that you're really not understanding and that you want help with. So ask for that help early, before it's too late and before you've got yourself into a panic, and ask for it clearly. And choose your moment. Don't ask the teacher when they're incredibly busy with 3 other people asking them questions at the same time, or they're just rushing to go home. If you find it difficult to find the right time to ask the teacher, write them a note and say, there's something I want to ask you about. I need a bit of help with something. When would be a good time to talk to you? So that's the first tip. Ask for help early and clearly. The second tip is to spend a good amount of time doing your planning. Now, some people love planning ahead and other people find it much harder. But if you need help with planning, then ask for it, because there are techniques in planning. There are lots of tips and techniques in Exam Attack, as you can imagine. But the more time you spend planning, the better. So planning your revision timetable, planning when you should be tackling a particular topic. But also make sure that you can adapt those plans as you go. Don't have your revision timetable all beautifully designed and written out and pinned to your wall, because you will inevitably have to make changes as you go. You'll have an illness, you'll have a cold, or something will happen, or a topic will take longer than you expected. So you need to be able to adapt it. So whether you do this on paper or you do it on a computer in any kind of software that you use is entirely up to you. It doesn't matter, as long as you are prepared to adapt your plans as you go. And my third tip is a very general one, but just enormously important. Look after your health. So look after your physical and mental well-being in all of the sorts of lifestyle ways that you would expect me to advise you on. So I talk about the table of well-being. The table of well-being has 4 legs: food and water, exercise, sleep, and relaxation. And all 4 of those legs are really important. If you look after all 4 of those, then you'll stand a much, much better chance of your brain and your body being able to do the work you want to do, and then when it comes to the exams, to be able to do your best performance. You will find, as you can imagine, I'm going to say this, you will find masses of advice on all of those things in Exam Attack. I hope you found the advice that I've offered a starting point in your journey towards the most successful exams that you can produce on the day. I truly believe that by following as much of the advice as you possibly can, you give yourself the best chance for that to happen. So Imogen, thank you very much for your questions today, and good luck to all of you in your exams that you're facing in the next few months, over the next year, or whatever it is, and also the exams that you might face at any point in your school lives and later, because this advice, the advice about how to take exams confidently and positively and successfully, applies to any exams that you will ever take throughout your lives. So good luck everyone, work hard, try hard, be confident, and stay well.